It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop, ever, until you are dead.
Oh my God!
Hello and welcome back to the You Run Podcast Rapid Reviews, the show where I review horror movies rapidly, funny enough. I have some guests with me today. Before I bring them on, make sure you like, comment and subscribe because we bring lots of these, and we've also got voices from the You Run Podcast. We've also got our independent movie hour. Like there's so much on this channel. So do that now. Like, follow, subscribe, all the cool things. And now I'd like to welcome the hosts of the Dewey Pod-Monster. This is the original podcast about consumption, and John and Sean are absolutely awesome. And today we're going to be talking about Terminator, and I know they both have views. So let's welcome them to the stage. There's Sean, and there's John. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Doing great. So it's like we haven't talked in forever.
So to give some context to that comment, we've just finished recording an episode for the Dewey Pod-Monster where I'm guesting on a movie that is in as equal standing as the Terminator.
Yeah,
That's
go
fair
with that. So.
So on this show, we do rapid reviews. But before we do that, do you want to tell everyone about your show and where they can find you and where they can do all the cool things like subscribe and listen and go follow you?
Yeah, I can do that. So, of course, you can find us at yourunpodcast.com. We're members of the You Run Podcast Network. And if you're not following that, you absolutely should be. But separately from that, we are all over social media on all the expected social medias at Dewey Pod-Monster, X or Twitter or whatever it is, Facebook, Instagram, all that shit. We're on there. Drop us a line there. We try to be interactive on there. You're probably going to be talking to me if you're on social media, but it's available for you. And of course, you can find all of our stuff on our podcast episodes on every podcast platform as well, like Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff, and our own site, which is crap.town.
Yeah, I think you covered everything there. Sean, anything you want to add to the promo from John?
He did a great job.
I think he done a stand-up job. Let's start talking.
You get used to rattling it off after so many times. So.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Like when we do horror movie review, that opening gambit is just ingrained in my brain now, and I'll tweak it for each movie that we do. But it's just there. It's like that. That's going to be something I'll end up saying one night when I'm really drunk. It will just come out when I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Scott. I'm the co-host of the You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review. It's just... let's start talking about the Terminator, and I want to start with you, Sean, because I know that you live in the Terminator RoboCop lane. This is kind of your wheelhouse. I want to start things off with favorite scene for you for this movie.
I think for me, one of my favorite scenes, the one that I always go back to and think about when I think of the Terminator, is that scene in Tech Noir where we first see Arnold, well, the Terminator, the T-800, meet up with Sarah Connor, like face to face, and he's walking through. There's all those slow motion shots. There's the scene where it's like the Terminator's looking at everybody in the club to try and find Sarah because he got the phone call saying, at Sarah's apartment, telling him where she was.
Yeah.
And he's walking through the club and he's just kind of scanning everybody. And as he gets to the part where she's sitting, there's a slow motion shot where she drops something. I forget if it's like her keys or something. And she goes to bend over to pick this thing up. And as she bends over to pick it up, he turns to look where she is, but he doesn't see her. So then he keeps walking by, and then Kyle Reese comes in. We have that confrontation, the first real face-to-face confrontation between the Terminator, Kyle Reese, Sarah Connor. She doesn't know what the hell is going on. She has no clue. what is in store for her. She just knows that, I think the only thing she really knows at this point is that other Sarah Connors have been terminated. So it's a scene that always sticks out in my mind, and Tech Noir is like burned in my brain. The name Tech Noir, in the lights, in the neon, I cannot not think of that scene when I think of the Terminator. It's one of my favorite parts, and it's so like nuanced the way that they put it all together.
Yeah, and the Terminator is one of those movies that lives in this world where some people claim it's not a horror movie, but it 100% is. This is a slasher movie. It is a slasher movie, just it's got a robot in it instead of Michael Myers or a Jason Voorhees. Where's your favorite scene in this, John?
Well, Sean kind of just mentioned it, but I really enjoy the scenes leading up to the Tech Noir scene where you get to see just how brutal Terminator is in this movie. Especially when he's just knocking on the door, saying Sarah Connor and blowing people away. It's pretty intense. But the one that really sticks out for me is what led into heading to Tech Noir is when he goes to the correct Sarah Connor's house and roughs up the boyfriend in the most like loud and abrasive fashion, while Sarah Connor's roommate is just like in post-coital, happiness, making a sandwich.
Bliss.
Yeah, and all of a sudden her boyfriend comes flying through a door, and here's Arnold to blow her away before he gets the phone call that arguably, allows the rest of this franchise to continue, because for all we know, he thinks Sarah Connor's dead before that phone rings, and Sarah Connor's on the phone saying, "I'm not dead. I'm at Tech Noir. Come check me out." So just the over-the-top insanity of that and the abrasiveness of Arnold throwing anyone around, and to think that you could be so oblivious with 1984 headphones to not hear that happening 5 feet away from you it's a good looking scene. It's well shot. It's got a decent amount of gore in it, and it's got a little bit of slasher movie schlock in it, which I always enjoy.
Yeah, see, for me, I love all of the build, but for me, it's the climax. It's the Terminator as it's crawling. It's lost its legs, and it's just the where it's reached the point that it is a relentless machine now. It's no longer Arnie. It's no longer that like gooey human appearance anymore. It is just a skeletal robot, and she thinks she's killed it, and it comes back and dragging itself up after her. That scene, because I watched this when I was super young. Like, I think I probably caught this when I was like 7 or 8. It was a VHS that we had like in the house, and it was like, it's like 80s parenting. Everyone's out, like they're in the garden. I'm left on my own. This one looks cool. It's got a guy with like a laser for an eye on the front cover. I'm going to put this on. And then like that scene terrified me as a kid, like genuinely scared me. And the fact that a Terminator could blend in anywhere was a really scary concept as a child. Like now it's not. Now it's like super cool. And I probably wouldn't care if there were actual androids and Terminators roaming around now. I'd have the same reaction as when the world governments told us aliens existed, and we all went, great, thanks.
I mean, how do you know they're not walking around amongst us, right?
This is very true. John could be one. John could be a Terminator.
He probably is.
I wouldn't put it past me. So,
what are the like practical effects wise in this? I think are really good. Where do you two sit on practical effects versus digital effects? We'll call them digital effects because I don't like calling it CGI. It is, but like, where do you lie on this? Are you ones that embrace the digital era, or are you very much like me? I like it when someone's made it.
I'll go first here because I just started talking. I prefer practical effects, and it's not even close, because I think, honestly, Terminator is a perfect example of this. Practical effects just age better. And this movie has a lot of practical effects that, I mean, it's a product of its time. You can tell that this is an early 80s movie that was shot on that level of technology. And when it does transition to some effects that are more digital, that's where I don't feel like it takes me out of the movie, but I can see the argument that it might take people out of the movie because it does look very different than some of the practical stuff in this. But this movie, I'm not inherently against digital effects. I just think that they have to be done so well that they don't take you out of something. And this movie is honestly one of the better examples of that. That it's like, although it's dated and you can see that in the digital effects, it doesn't take you out of what's happening on the screen. So that's more good than bad.
Yeah, it's good quality force lightning used in this, as opposed to the force lightning we get in Child's Play. Like it's Child's Play force lightning, but at a better quality. How about you, Sean? Are you the same?
I think those are two great examples to use. Child's Play, force lightning. Just wanted to say that. No, I love practical effects. I love the craftsmanship that's put into it. I think practical effects, for all intents and purposes, is what made me fall in love with this era of horror movies and sci-fi and all those things. I think that those 80s movies, that's like perfecting the craft, getting to the point where, yeah, sometimes it doesn't look like it's necessarily the most real thing ever, but it's iterated up to the point now where in the 80s, I'm talking Terminator era, where the people that are the artists, the masters, they're doing it where it's not seamless quite yet, but it holds your attention more. I feel like now, and I do like digital effects too, I feel like now we're finally getting to the point, maybe within the last like 5 years or so, where digital effects can now start to, it's in its heyday, like it's hitting its stride, where things, we got past some of the first Avengers movies, or maybe Iron Man or something like that, where some of the digital effects are still like, okay, not so convincing. But now we're like Avengers Endgame, we can say like, okay, this looks like it's more realistic. If we looked at something like Phantom Menace, right, where Jar Jar Binks is the first like fully digital character, doesn't look so great. You go back and look at it now, but you look at something like Endgame or the later Avengers movies, where it's almost everything nowadays, or you look at something like Mandalorian, where the backgrounds are Unity and you can't even tell that they're not on a set. They're just sitting in a holodeck essentially. So I think now they're starting to get to the point where it looks so good that it doesn't need to be when they still do practical effects that are good, I like it, but I like practical effects better.
Okay. For score wise, because we're about midway through, so we score in the middle of this show. I don't know why. It's just the way it's happened. Scoring out of 5. Where would you score this, John?
John or John?
John, sorry.
Me or him? Me? Oh,
you. Yeah.
This one's a really solid movie for me. I'd say probably solid 4 out of 5. Like, it's not perfect and it has its flaws, and Sean's going to get mad at me for this, but the biggest drawback for this movie for me personally is I like the sequel so much more than I like this one. I think they did a better job with a lot of things in like fleshing out the characters, making Arnold better. Linda Hamilton is a standout character in both these movies, but I think she's one of the best female protagonists ever in film in the second movie. And I don't know. In this one, she almost seems too gullible at times, or I just like what the character turns into in the second movie more than the first one. So that's really my biggest like knocks on this movie. It's nothing against this movie in particular. I just like what came immediately after it a little bit more than what was in this one.
Okay. Sean, where are you? Are you going to attack John now for his slanderous comments and score?
No, he's entitled to his wrong opinions. That's fine. He knows they're wrong. We talked about it. He knows. Are we going? Can I use half points, or does it have to be full points?
Oh no, you can use half points.
Okay. All right. I give it I don't like to really say anything's a 5 out of 5. I don't like to. I like to leave that little wiggle room. I think there are things in this movie. We'll get to the point. I think it's 4.5 out of 5. I think for me, I've realized that I really like movies that blend genres together. So this is like we've got horror, we've got sci-fi, we've got action, we've got a little bit of adventure, a little bit like this is using tech noir that I mentioned the first segment. It's got these little noir elements to the movie where it's almost like a bit of a detective movie where the Terminator, Arnie, is this like hard-boiled detective kind of dude, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he's not a real dude, but he's trying to figure out how he's going to get to her. And they're always trying to stay one step ahead. So there's this cat and mouse element to it. Yeah, could Linda Hamilton's character be maybe a little more assertive and not be such a piece of the background? Of course. Yeah, of course. But I love the way that they established that T-800 is this unstoppable killing machine. You played the clip at the beginning. It's my favorite clip of like the entire film. He will not stop until you are dead. And that's true. He will not. He only stops because he eventually meets his death. So I think that, and me seeing this one, obviously, kind of like you, seeing it at a really young age, maybe like too young of an age, really left an imprint on me. T2 is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any like debate about that, but I think that this is, for me, this is my favorite of the franchise. I mean, I don't think they get much better. They don't get any better than this. I can't say that they do.
No, I think T2 is as good, if not slightly better than Terminator. T3 onwards into the world that we get afterwards is a slow descent into how to destroy a franchise, like a step-by-step guide on how to break all of the good work you put in the first two movies. For me, this is a 4 out of 5. I love this film. I think it's really, really well crafted. It's really well put together. It's a great movie. And now we've all praised it. John, what is your least favorite part of this movie?
Do I even have a lead?
It's hard when it's a good movie.
Yeah, there's not. I guess my least favorite part of this would just be. This is almost hard to say because I still like what I'm about. Like, I like Linda Hamilton in this movie. I do. I think she's great. She's as relatable as a character can be in this situation, I suppose. But I feel like they might have been able to do more to bring her, whether it's assertiveness or just whatever, however she's more of her in this situation. Because I feel like a lot of this one in particular really hinges on Kyle Reese versus the Terminator. That's a lot of what this movie is. And again, this probably goes more into my feelings on the second movie. This movie is really a lot more than that. There's a lot more story in that. And I feel like they could have done more to make Sarah Connor a stronger character in the first movie. But I mean, I'm grasping at straws to even say that as a negative, because again, I do still like this character in this. If this was a standalone film, I would not have this complaint at all. But because it's not a standalone film, that's the only reason I can even make this kind of comment on it.
Yeah, it's really hard to pick apart great movies. Like this is a great movie. 4s and 4.5s out of 5. This is almost as good as it gets, which is kind of why I like doing this bit, because it's making people really look at the film, which means it's your turn, Sean. What in this, if there's something that grinds your gears, what would it be?
It's got to be Linda Hamilton's Vespa. What a piece of shit. No, I would say that I got to go with John. I think that Linda Hamilton's kind of passiveness, the gullibility of the character, she accepts things like way too quickly for a movie that is so good, that handles so many different elements. Like the psychiatrist is even so just, this guy's nuts. Kyle Reese is nuts. He's got these illusions of grandeur. He's like, I don't know. He's just schizophrenic probably. But Linda Hamilton, as soon as like Reese, this guy does admittedly come and try and kill her, and she has no idea why, but she just accepts that, oh no, it's just a guy from the future. I'm from the future too, really. And I'm here to protect you because we need to let your son grow up and be born so that I can come back here and do this all over again, essentially. So.
Yeah.
I think that's really, that's a little thin.
Yeah, see, my gripe with this is the hobo from the future, Kyle Reese. Kyle Reese rubs me the wrong way, and I don't know why. He's very like, it is, you must come with me and I will save you. Where in reality, he's going, you must come with me because you're hot and I need to bone you so we can have your son. like, I know they established that he doesn't know, but he's done this time loop already. He knows that it's him. Like, when he got sent back to the past, he knows that this is like, when you mess around with time, it becomes so difficult to keep it working. And there's very few movies that do it well. Back to the Future do it. They brush over a couple of things and just go, yeah, it's fine. Totally Killer does it, and also does this kind of, well, just don't pay attention to that bit. And the Terminator, again, is guilty of doing the, if you look at it too hard because it's a time travel movie, you're going to either pick it apart or your head's going to explode. And Kyle Reese is the central point of that for me, which is, he's my gripe, is Kyle Reese.
How great would it be though if we got a extra shot, like an extra scene shot today, 2024, of Edward Furlong telling whoever, I can't remember his name and I get yelled at for that too, telling Kyle Reese to go back in time and bang his mom. That would be pretty funny to watch.
That and Edward Furlong, I imagine, for a very small sum of money, like probably enough that we could probably club together and make that scene happen.
Buy him a case of Viper and make it happen. So
yeah. We're going to round this off with favorite characters, and I'm going to go first. I'm going to steal everyone's favorite character. I think I'm going to go with Arnie with the T-800. I think he's a perfectly crafted villain. When they made Terminator, they took everything that had come before in slashers. They took that almost silent type of Michael Myers, and they kept it devoid of personality. And I think that works really well. This unstoppable killing machine that you can injure. You can take big chunks of his face off. You can cut him in half, but he will not stop. I think that's the perfect character for a movie like this. Sean, where are you going? John, you're getting slim pickings. All the good characters will be gone by the time we get to you.
I already know who I'm going to pick, and it's not Arnold. So
I'm afraid of what you're going to say. I think
you probably of all people know what I'm going to say.
I could play something right here, but I won't. I think, T-800 is, like you said, Scott. He's like he's like the slasher villain rolled into everything, right? He can be slowed down. He can be destroyed eventually, but he's just not going to stop. He can be. He doesn't necessarily have underground tunnels that he can go through and pop up behind you, but he pretty much knows where you're going to be all the time. I think a real close runner-up. I do, as much as you don't, I like Kyle Reese. Michael Biehn does a great job in this movie. Kyle Reese is like this crafty, wily character that just kind of worms his way into whatever he can, and he does his everything to his ability to keep Sarah safe. And I think that's his mission. He's a soldier. He does what a soldier does. He follows orders, and he takes a little bit of liberties with it. He takes some perks to the victor of the spoils. What do you expect? But yeah, I mean, T-800, I think, is my favorite character. I'm very curious and very intrigued to hear what John has to say about that.
So am I.
So, as much as this movie is in a lot of ways, one of the two definitive Schwarzenegger movies, like Predator being the other one, I would say, there's two actors that are reoccurring friends of the show. They don't know they're friends of the show for us, but they are in like probably 70% of the movies that we talk about. One of them is Lance Henriksen and the other is Dick Miller, and they're both in this fucking movie. But I'm going to go with Dick Miller's pawn shop clerk as my favorite character in this movie, because Dick Miller is such a great character actor, and he's always the guy who's just like a stubborn asshole in a movie that gets blown away prematurely, and he plays it to a T. And it's a fun little scene in it where you get to see a person interacting with a machine, and a machine just being a complete machine to him. It's a great little, like, I like scenes in movies where they have this little sidetrack where they kind of explain part of the story, but they're still memorable somehow. And the pawn shop clerk is a great little cutaway scene where they do that. So I'm going with Dick Miller's pawn shop clerk as the best character in this movie.
Yeah.
Sean's laughing because I don't think he's surprised at all.
No, I thought you were going to go with the garbage man.
I'll be honest. I'm not. I'm not surprised either. But you make a good point about them showing that he's a machine, and I think one of the best scenes that they do this is where Arnie rocks up fully stark bollock naked to the biker bar at the beginning. Is arguably one of the funniest scenes.
T2.
Yeah, is that T2,
T1,
isn't it?
T1 is the Punkers with Bill Paxton.
Yeah, Bill Paxton.
That's right. Yeah,
Brian,
T2.
what's his face?
Yeah, T2's the. That's embarrassing. I've merged the two movies in my head.
They're so closely intertwined, though. I mean, it's an honest mistake.
Yeah. No, so this is the punks, isn't it? He gets the punks, and he goes.
Gets the clothes that there's no fucking way in hell would ever fit him. Like,
no, the punks are built like me, and like Arnie would need like 3 times the size of this to even squeeze into it. But yeah, they're stretchy clothes.
Well, they show it later, and the jacket's like even big on Arnie. It's like hanging off of him, so it's no way Bill Paxton was wearing that thing.
Yeah,
no, not at all. Thank you so much for coming on for this rapid review. There you have it, folks. This is a rapid review. Give you one more chance. Go and pitch yourselves, whore yourselves, however you want to do it. Terminate other shows and say how great you are and where we can find you.
I'm just going to say, check us out at yourunpodcast.com. We're on the You Run Podcast Network. That's one of the easiest places. I'm sure it will be linked somewhere on this show, and you can find everything else that we do through there. So we're very happy with being members of that network, and that's the only place where I want to tell people to go right now.
Well,
Correct,
thank you very much. Yeah, crap.town as well. Huge thank you for both of you for coming on. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend. Go and give John and Sean a follow as well. Go and listen to their show because you're going to love it. If you like what they've said here for the last 26 minutes, you're going to like them doing that with movies that you probably won't have seen, like the movies that we just reviewed. We just reviewed Street Trash. And if anyone knows what that is, let us know in the comments, and I'll share the comments with John and Sean. But thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you all next time. Thanks a lot.